Crimes Against Humanity is a compilation of songs and poems that I originally wrote to coincide with the Anne Frank in the World exhibition, which was brought to the northeast of England many years ago. Over a long period of time, I've gathered a written work originally set to music, which try to reflect something of the horror of the Holocaust and beyond. I've tried to probe the minds of victims who experienced this, and to look through their eyes at a time of history that should never be forgotten, yet which continues even today. I realise, however, that no matter how hard I try, I will never be able to bring to life the real horrors that these people experienced physically, mentally, and spiritually, but hope that this work is at least thought-provoking. I'm recording this at a time when anti-Semitism is as high worldwide as it was in the 1930s. So my heart's desire is that from any aspect of this work, even one person's conscience might be awakened to the horrors that continue to face mankind today, and that reality would show itself in a more compassionate and tolerant society, bringing peace and God's love into a world of much need. I would like to thank Elie Wiesel for inspiration, and I have eternal gratitude to Corrie ten Boom, but most of all to the God of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, the God of Israel, for his eternal covenant and for the gift of music. My eyes were opened to the horrors of the Holocaust through the wonderful daily writings of Anne Frank. I've loved this young girl since my youth when I first read her diary. Her short life is engraved on my soul. And the work was dedicated to our son Matthew, who is my own personal gift of life given out of the ashes of my history. Prelude to Darkness, a reflection on Isaiah 53, Ramat Rachel. To be chosen, but why? Were we chosen only to die? Was it written in the books to be smitten with deathly looks? Forsaken and despised, for her children Rachel cries. Could it be? Perhaps only a dream. Yet in my silence I hear the screams. Oh God, what have they done? Are we really the chosen ones? We were oppressed and afflicted, yet we opened not our mouths. Led like a lamb to be slaughtered, and a sheep before its shearers is silent. Cut off from the land of the living, O God, we were surely stricken. And now a generation is gone. The ghetto walls are covered in our tears, as more families are crowded into the rooms. And is it true, the news that I receive, of an unspeakable truth I hear, of the horror that we fear? Garbage mounts and typhus soon sets in, and soldiers are still playing their games. Select just 100 or so for now. To where? I wonder. Wonder, I wonder. To where? I wonder. Yet really, I know. Oh, keep up your strength now, you plundered Jew. History proves that you can pull through. Yet never have I seen so many graves. And I wonder, 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 when will our time come? And soon we're moved into another place and see more pain upon another face, more starvation and humiliation. Is Bergen-Belsen really as they say? And will we last yet another day? One of the poems that's in my book, Crimes Against Humanity, is a tribute to Anne Frank, and it's simply called Dear Kitty.
Dear Kitty, I'll hide behind my youthful looks, disguise my feelings deep, desires, yearnings of my soul, my faithful friend I'll keep. To hold a tulip and smell the scent, to embrace a friend, to walk in rain, to dance, to laugh, to play, to sing, far cry from silence and this hiding. A child so innocent I long to be, but danger strikes, it frightens me, and thoughts grow deep, forcing this flower to grow, but will I grow and live to be free? I laid awake one night with fever, scared to sleep for fear of dreams. A vile murderer hears and stalks me, my safety gone and fear looms. A happy child, but then I snap. I wish I could be what I want to be, but what could I be? A thought occurs, if this world were no more.
A tribute to Corrie ten Boom. Certain moments from long ago stood out against the blur of years. Oddly shaped and near they were, though not finished, as if something more to say.
Sad eyes, sitting in the wagon, Betsy and father too, taking us far away, but we didn't want to go. Hundreds of human beings, treated worse than cattle. We were cramped together, but we were together for now. No hate, Corrie, no hate. Pay the price for caring, locked inside your cell. Solitary confinement, living in sheer hell. Yet no pit is so deep that he isn't deeper still. A hiding place from the wind, a cover from the tempest. Forgive them, touching the apple of God's eye. But forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful child, don't cry. Don't cry. The dogs won't hurt you. Turn your eyes away. Clutching a single flower, she holds it to her face, her little mind so confused. Hold tightly in my arms. Labelled with a golden star, whispers in the dark, echoes of a slamming door, in chambers made for sleeping forever. Oh, beautiful, beautiful child, don't cry, don't cry. Now sleeping, still clutching her flower, so still.
I searched for a familiar face against the glare of a hated race. Attack dogs, searchlights keep us in place as one by one selections are made. The freezing cold bites to the bone as more cattle cars come to our home. My memories, though, they cannot take. Summer days sat by a lake, walking with the girl I love. Happy, free. Oh, a memory. I dare not think where she might lie, as barbed wire fence closes me in. What, I ask, have we done wrong? Oh, to see her face is all I long. Maybe my faith will keep me strong. Oh, has all hope really gone? The stench of decaying bodies fill the fear of my troubled years. What is the point to the horror that I see? Won't somebody answer me? Following a BBC radio broadcast interview in which I was invited on behalf of Christian Friends of Israel to speak on the Holocaust, I came across a Holocaust survivor in the northeast of England, whose name we will simply call Helen. A member of my team and I had the privilege to take what we felt was the Lord's healing balm into her life. Helen had only been able to share her experience once before, which sadly brought further persecution to her life. We were only the second people in 50 years with whom she confided and shared her story. What follows is a very short section of a testimony taken from my book, Crimes Against Humanity. Helen's story began in Poland, where she was born in the 1920s in the industrial town of Lodz. She was born into a wealthy Jewish family, and her parents were Russian Jews, landowners who came from Kiev, which is now part of the Ukraine. They left there just before the First World War due to the pogroms that were happening. Both her parents spoke Russian and Hebrew, and her father was a managing director of a bank. Sadly, in 1940, he was kicked to death by the Germans for refusing to open the safe in the bank. The rest of the family were then sent to the ghetto. Lodz, a city in western Poland, became home to the first major ghetto in April 1940. By September 1941, approximately 160,000 people lived in a 2 square miles. In 1944, the ghetto was liquidated. However, before that happened, Helen, along with her sister, brother and mother, were sent to Auschwitz in 1943, where they were to spend almost a year. On arrival, their mother was shot in front of her 2 teenage daughters, and Helen had vivid memories of arriving there and of a soldier holding a gun to her head while she was shaved from her head to foot. From Auschwitz, Helen was sent to other camps before finally ending up at Belsen. Cattle trucks took them to Belsen. Then, very weak and at the point of fainting, they were forced to walk the final part of their horrific journey. From miles away, they could smell the stench of the camp, and when they arrived, it looked as if the ground was moving because there were so many lice covering it. 60,000 corpses were found when the British soldiers arrived. They had to torch the bodies to burn them. Helen and her sister Rose only managed to survive this terrible ordeal because they were young enough and strong enough to be put to work. I also learned that Rose, who was the older sister, would not have survived except for the exceptional courage of Helen, who simply would not give in, even though sometimes she despaired of ever knowing normal life again. She said to me, "I was too young to die, and my sister had typhus, and I had to be strong to help her." On one of my many visits to spend time with Helen, she asked me, "Have you heard of Anne Frank?" I remember her in the camp. Her dark, hollow eyes, so sweet. She wasn't much younger than me, you know. Yes, I remember that girl. Some of the things I was told are too harrowing to tell, but I feel I must mention that Helen underwent some frightful experiments, mainly injections to prevent her from having children. But for some reason, the treatment was never completed. However, a great deal of damage had already been done. Amazingly, she married at the Bergen-Belsen camp after liberation and was admitted to hospital, where she lay for nearly 2 years receiving treatment to counteract the effects of those injections. And following this, she had 4 children, all normal and healthy. But Helen had to have treatment from a doctor every 2 weeks of her life as a result of the horrific time that she spent in Belsen. Although Belsen came at the end of her imprisonment, she had very clear memories of it. Bergen-Belsen was established in April 1943 as a detention camp. However, it was classified as a concentration camp in March 1944. Under the command of Adolf Haas, the highest number of prisoners at any one time was 60,000, of whom Helen was one. It's estimated that 50,000 people died in Belsen, including approximately 13,000 after liberation. Even as I visited her, Helen's fear to announce her Jewish identity was with her. Even in her hometown in England, she was afraid to talk about her past, and it took many, many months to share her story with us. Even though Helen knew that I was a believer in Yeshua, Jesus, she always treated me like a son. And on one of my final visits, she asked me, "Why? Why do you bother coming here? Why do you want to help me? You must love your Messiah a lot to be bothered with me." Helen died in January 2004, and I was told of her death whilst returning from one of my many trips to Israel. Her last wish was to be buried with her husband, who was a Gentile, in the church cemetery. Before she was buried, however, and at her family's request, I had the great honour of saying the Kaddish for her. Since then, we have been blessed to be bequeathed with some of Helen's Judaica, items from her life. And through Helen's granddaughter, Steph, we've been able to put this exhibition together for Christian Friends of Israel, and we've toured many places with it. This exhibition is to tell Helen's story and to honour an amazing lady so that her memory will live on.
A fallen body lies upon the winter snow. The wired fence holds another 1,000 in a row. Potatoes, thinned out soup, a piece of bread. Mud-filled clothes, bodies torn and old, with lice-ridden heads. What love could possibly come from this? What love could come from this? Tortured faces in a line, standing naked, shattered minds, pushed aside, humiliated. What love could come from this? What love could possibly come from this? Yet didn't he suffer the same? And wasn't it for our sake? Father, into your hands my spirit will you take. What love could come from this? What love? His love. No pit too deep. No, not too deep, that he is not deeper still. What love? His love.
Today, the ghetto knows a different fear, close in its grip. Death wields an icy scythe. An evil sickness spreads a terror. In its wake, the victim of its shadow weep and writhe. Today, a father's heartbeat tells of his fright, and mothers bend their heads into their hands. Now children choke and die with typhus here. A bitter tax is taken for their bands. My heart still beats inside my breast, while friends depart for other worlds. Perhaps it's better, who can say, than watching this, to die today. No, no, my God, we want to live, not watch our numbers melt away. We want to have a better world. We want to work. We must not die.
This next poem is called Yesterday, Today, the Same. It was written in 1995, the year our son Matthew was born. And earlier on I mentioned that today we are living in a time when anti-Semitism is as high in the world as it was in the 1930s. Can I close my eyes and hide inside my home? Can I turn my face away? What will the world see in this lonely old man? Will they believe the words I say? Is 50 years too long a time? Should I simply just forget as I stand beside the cenotaph? What of my love, my debt? At night, I try to sleep in peace, but nightmares stalk my mind. I awake to see my world today in war and hate, a familiar kind. A child will ask, what Holocaust? Another states, it's lies, just sympathy for the Jewish world, while burning tears run from fading eyes. Is it right that the world should just forget or say it's all untrue? Yet I see today it happens again. To stop it, what can we do? Is it just me? Is it just you that causes men to fight For black? For white? For me, a Jew? Don't I have a say? A right? This next poem was inspired when I heard Elie Wiesel speak about his time in the death camps. It's called Never Shall I Forget.
Never shall I forget the horror of it all. Little faces of children turned into wreaths of smoke. Never shall I forget those flames beneath the clear blue sky, consuming my friends, my faith, my God, my dreams to dust. But why? Six million Jews in gas chambers or murdered by starvation, and a world stood by through indifference, a world that watched in silence. I survived to see someone stare at me from the depths of a mirror. I stood, a corpse, gazed back. Was it really me, barely alive, yet free? But what is freedom if memories are always trapped with flames? I left the camp, but it, not me. Nothing can erase the pain. No, never, never shall I forget the horror of it all. To see my inheritance bereft, to stand, to suffer, to fall. No, never shall I forget.
Opening my mouth to catch the falling rain, in muddy pools, my misery reflects my pain. Oh, to erase this memory. Oh, to sleep in peace forever. Though my dreams won't leave me, I can testify for at least a while I remain. But who will listen? And who will care to this poor soul's ache? A friendly face I'm glad to see as I commemorate the day of VE. Did it really exist? The camps, the pain, the death? My numbered arm says yes. Whoever saves one life saves the world entire. But why? Oh, why? Oh, to sleep in peace forever.
This next poem is called Dear Anne, Where Are You? I just want to share some thoughts on why I wrote it. As I mentioned at the beginning of this film, my eyes were opened to the horrors of the Holocaust through the wonderful daily writings of Anne Frank. I've loved this young girl since my youth, when I was 12 years old. Her short life is engraved on my soul, and Anne's words in her diary, which she wrote to somebody called Kitty, allow people, both young and old, to identify with her feelings of fear, confusion, and hope. And they reflect on her short life as well as that of many other Jewish children who perished during the Holocaust. In fact, 1.5 million children perished in the Holocaust. In the diary, there are certain passages that describe Anne's desire to become a writer, and the need she felt to record her experiences for posterity. Had Anne survived the war, she would have been a very old lady now. Sadly, she didn't survive. Yet her story has lived on. And in many ways, I have heard her voice through the many survivors that I've spoken to on my visits to Holocaust survivors, through the wonderful work of Christian Friends of Israel. Indeed, to spend a few years with one survivor called Helen, which is why I wrote Helen's story, and you see the photographs of the exhibition as you're watching this film. To hear Helen give testimony and speak of knowing Anne Frank in the camps was such a privilege, and it caused me to realise that Anne's wish for her writings to be known had not been just a dream. In many ways, Anne does indeed live on. You know, although millions were silenced by the Holocaust, the words of Anne Frank continue to educate generations about the tragic events of a time that should never be forgotten. In fact, her diary is available today in 66 languages, and more than 40 million copies have been sold worldwide. Anne's diary is important in many ways. Historians often regard her diary as an important historical document of the period, and teachers use Anne's words to talk about feelings, about growing up and family relations, because Anne wrote all about these things. Anne Frank's diary is still an inspiration to people today, because even though she knew what was happening to her Jewish friends and neighbours, and though she was trapped in her hiding place, Anne always believed in the true goodness of people. The words and ideals of this young girl remind me that we need to respect each other, and we need to appreciate and understand each other's differences, because we're all different, aren't we? We're not made like some robot, some machine. On the 21st of July, 1944, Anne wrote the following. It's difficult in times like these. Ideals, dreams, and cherished hopes rise within us, only to be crushed by grim reality. It's a wonder I haven't abandoned all my ideals. They seem so absurd and impractical. Yet I cling to them because I believe. I believe, in spite of everything, that people are truly good at heart. As mentioned, during the course of her hiding, her diary became her real friend, otherwise known as Kitty. But think about this for a moment. What would have happened had Kitty been a real person? What would have happened had she responded to Anne's writings? And what would she have thought when the letters suddenly stopped? These are questions that I've often asked children when I've had the privilege to speak in schools regarding CFI's ministry with Holocaust survivors. And so, what was just a page of questions for children to ask, there became a song within my heart called Dear Anne. Where was she? What had happened to Kitty's faithful friend? She's been waiting here for you to write. And she will keep waiting here to hear your voice again.
Dear Anne, where are you? My faithful friend, where have you gone? I've been waiting here for you to write. The page is open, your thoughts untold. The room so empty, the night so cold. I'll keep waiting here to hear your voice. I call your name in vain. You're gone. But I'll keep waiting here. I long for you, my little child, to sing your song again. Your dreams could not be further from me than I am from you, than you are from me. Yet in my dreams I see you still, your smiling face. Are you whispering my name? I call your name. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, my sweetheart? I call your name. Can you hear me? Can you hear me calling your name, dear Anne? The birds are singing from your trees. This dark horizon disappears. The land is reborn, and Israel lives. And still I wait for you. Can anyone know my pain? The seasons change, yet my love's the same. But still we're lost, and Kitty cries. The bells are chiming, but I search the skies for you. I call your name. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, my sweetheart? I call your name. Can you hear me? Can you hear me calling your name, dear Anne? And who will know if I don't tell? And who will learn if the story remains untold? And if your world, your dreams, your life are no more, what could I be? What could I be?
As I've mentioned throughout my time working with Christian Friends of Israel with Project Forsake Them Not, I've had the privilege to go into Holocaust survivors' homes, both in the UK and many times out in Israel. And this next poem is a quote from a Holocaust survivor. So I've entitled it the quote that she spoke out to me, which is this: "My heart hurts so much that I've almost forgotten my name."
Somewhere in my past, I remember a time when the sun shone bright, when my heart danced and eyes sparkled, when I could sleep and awake and feel refreshed and smile. I would sing and laugh as my thoughts would spiral into clouds. I'd dream of heaven, I'd wish on a star. Like Peter Pan, I'd never want to grow up. But as I turned the page in the book, my dream collapsed. My song remained unsung. And to my horror, the page was simply empty. And now my eyes fade, and barbed wire holds my heart to the floor. The tortured dream remains, and my heart hurts so much that I almost forget my name.
In an age when anti-Semitism is as high today as it was in the 1930s, the importance of remembrance has never been greater. The need for education on Nazi persecution and the Holocaust is vital. Why? Because the lack of knowledge increases intolerance. The lack of knowledge increases anti-Semitism and even Holocaust denial. During the Holocaust, there were a few people who tried to bring hope. They tried to make a difference. People like Corrie ten Boom, the Dutch Christian who hid the Jews in her home and prayed, "Lord Jesus, I offer myself for your people in any way, any place, any time." And although Corrie ten Boom survived, she did end up in a concentration camp because of her actions. And then there was the German pastor Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was killed by the Germans for opposing them in their hatred of the Jews. Of course, we all know of the brave acts of Oskar Schindler, who saved hundreds of Jews from certain death. There were people like Raoul Wallenberg, the Swedish diplomat who saved the lives of tens of thousands of Jews in Budapest during World War II. Yet the names are few and far between. So, from this horrific period of history that we call the Holocaust, or the Shoah, as the Jewish people call it, can the world find any hope? Can Christians find any hope? And for the Jews, from the death of 6 million Jews, can the Jewish people find any hope? Especially with the fact that anti-Semitism is so high again today throughout the world. Is there no hope? Well, I personally believe that there is hope. And some of that hope can be found in the scriptures, in the Hebrew scriptures, what the church would call the Old Testament, in the prophet Ezekiel in chapter 37. I believe it is here that we find not only the warning of the Holocaust, but we also find the hope for the Jewish people and the nation of Israel today, which in turn should bring hope to the Christian world too. In Ezekiel chapter 37, we read about the valley of dry bones. And in verse 1 it says, "The hand of the Lord was upon me, and he brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord, and set me in the middle of a valley. It was full of bones. And he led me back and forth among them, and I saw a great many bones on the floor of the valley, bones that were very dry. And he asked me, Son of man, can these bones live? And Ezekiel answered, O sovereign Lord, you alone know. Then God spoke to him, and he said, Prophesy to these bones, and say to them, Dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. And in verse 7 we read, So Ezekiel prophesied as he was commanded. And as he prophesied, there was a noise, a rattling sound, and the bones came together, bone to bone. And he looked, and tendons and flesh appeared on them, and skin covered them, but there was no breath in them. And then the Lord spoke, and he said, Prophesy to the breath, prophesy, Son of man, and say, This is what the sovereign Lord says. Come, breath, from the four winds, and breathe into these slain, that they may live. And I often feel we should underline that, those two words, these slain. Verse 10, So I prophesied as he commanded me, and breath entered them, and they came to life and stood upon their feet, a vast army. Then verse 11 says, Then God spoke to Ezekiel again, and he said, Son of man, and I really feel we need to listen to this and understand it. Son of man, these bones are the people of Israel. They say, Our bones are dried up, and our hope is gone. We are cut off. Therefore prophesy and say to them, This is what the sovereign Lord says. My people, I am going to open your graves and bring you up from them. And again, note this. He says, I will bring you back to the land of Israel. And then verse 13 states, Then you, my people, will know that I am the Lord, when you open your graves and bring you up from them. And I will put my spirit in you, and you will live, and I will settle you in your own land. Then you will know that the Lord has spoken, and I have done it, declares the Lord. Isn't it interesting that the Jewish people cried out, and they said, Our hope is gone. Today, and since 1948, the national anthem of Israel is Hatikvah. And Hatikvah means the hope. I believe that this description of Ezekiel 37 should never be taken out of context. It should never apply to something that it doesn't say. It mentions the people of Israel. It mentions the Jewish people. It mentions them being taken from what looks like when Ezekiel is describing this valley that is full of bones. Could this have been the Holocaust that Ezekiel was seeing in his vision? Because 3 short years after the Holocaust finished, Israel became a nation again, which is what God says will happen. 6 million Jews were murdered in the Holocaust. Yet from the ashes of the Holocaust, the nation of Israel was reborn. And today, there are more than 6 million Jews living in Israel. But they are not merely just surviving, they are changing the world for the better. Today, Israel makes a difference to the world in what they've created in technology. They make a difference when there is any world disaster, as they are generally the first country to send teams to help relieve the problems. They make a difference. And today, you too can make a difference. You can be part of Israel's legacy of hope. For today, much of the world hates the Jews. Anti-Semitism is as high today as it was in the 1930s. Today, much of the world hates Israel. The Holocaust may have happened, but the heart of man doesn't appear to change. But you can change the world. You can stand up and make a case for the people and the nation of Israel. You might be thinking, how? How can I make a change? Well, to start with, you can support our work through Christian Friends of Israel as we minister to survivors in Israel today. Not just Holocaust survivors, but survivors of terrorist attacks and victims of war. And secondly, you can make a difference where you live by lobbying your MP when you hear unfair reporting or injustice against the Jewish people today.
Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chunika. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up the light of his countenance upon you and give you peace.